So we're zooming in on May 3rd. You might think it's just another day on the calendar, but it actually holds one of the greatest real-life detective stories in the entire history of mathematics. We're going to explore exactly why this date is absolutely crucial. It's an epic story of human triumph, overcoming literally impossible odds, and a beautiful mind that quite literally changed how we navigate our modern world. We're going to journey back in time to see how one person's sheer determination impacts the tech you use every single day. So let's just jump right in.
But hey, before we get into the history, I want you to think about the technology in your pocket right now. Have you ever wondered how a spacecraft finds the absolute perfect path through millions of miles of empty space? Or, closer to home, how your smartphone's GPS instantly calculates the fastest route when you're stuck in traffic? It feels like magic, right? But it's actually pure, elegant mathematics working behind the scenes.
Well, the answer to that technological mystery traces directly back to May 3rd, 1988. On this exact date, the world lost an absolute genius, the person who provided the foundational math to solve all these crazy, complex routing problems. And by doing that, they forever changed our world, mapping out the best possible paths through incredibly complex environments. So let's meet the mastermind behind the map in your pocket.
Okay, let's dive into this incredible mind. We're talking about Lev Semenovich Pontryagin, a legendary Russian mathematician who passed away on May 3rd, 1988. Now, what makes this story so incredibly inspiring isn't just the game-changing math he created, it's the unimaginable hurdles he overcame to actually get there. His life is literal proof that physical limitations completely do not define what our minds can achieve.
Born in Moscow back in 1908 to a civil servant and a seamstress, Pontryagin faced a total tragedy in 1922. He was just 14 years old when a terrible explosion left him completely blind. Now, for most people back then, this meant the end of any formal education, and it definitely ruled out a career in advanced abstract mathematics, right? But he didn't stop. No way. Miraculously, by 1925 he entered the University of Moscow, and by 1961 he published his absolute masterpiece. So how on earth did a completely blind teenager become a world-renowned mathematical genius?
Well, the secret behind his success was his absolutely heroic mother, Tatyana Andreevna. Think about traditional math learning. We usually read thick textbooks and write complex formulas on a board, right? But Tatyana, despite having zero mathematical background herself, stepped up and took complete responsibility for his education. For years, she was basically his full-time secretary. She read dense, highly academic scientific works out loud, wrote down the crazy complex formulas he dictated, corrected his manuscripts, and get this, she even learned foreign languages just so she could read him the latest global research papers.
Now, what's really interesting about this is, how do you even read an advanced math paper out loud when you have no idea what the symbols mean? It's like reading an alien language. Well, together they created this beautiful, totally ingenious visual translation system. She basically described the complicated math symbols purely by what they looked like. For the set theory union symbol, the U shape, she just called it tails up. For the intersection symbol, the upside down U, she called it tails down. So if she read A tails right B, Pontryagin instantly visualized in his magnificent mind that A was a subset of B. It's just a stunning story of teamwork and a mother's fierce, incredible love.
And all this profound teamwork culminated in 1961 with a truly groundbreaking publication, The Mathematical Theory of Optimal Processes. For a big chunk of his early career, he actually focused on pure abstract topology and algebra. But right around 1952, something shifted. He pivoted toward real-world applied math problems, specifically diving into differential equations. And this shift, it led directly to his crowning achievement, the one that totally transformed modern technology. He developed the absolute foundation of what we now call control theory.
And this brilliantly illustrates how math solves real problems. In practical terms, control theory is just a logical set of steps for any dynamic system. Step 1, identify your ultimate destination. Step 2, calculate the absolute optimal, most efficient path to get there from your starting point. And step 3, continuously adjust your inputs for the best possible results along the way. That's it. That is the exact mathematical logic that powers the GPS routing on your phone right now, and it's what tells a spacecraft precisely when to fire its thrusters to reach a totally different planet.
This brings us to a really powerful realization about how Pontryagin mind actually worked. Because he couldn't physically see equations on a piece of paper or shapes on a chalkboard, he was forced to build the most incredibly complex geometric structures entirely inside his head. Literally a math playground in his mind. Without visual distractions, he just held these massive equations and mathematical pathways in his memory.
In a weird way, his blindness might have actually allowed him to grasp the true, deep essence of the math far more clearly than any of his sighted peers.
Fast forward to today, and his legacy is absolutely everywhere. Whether it's a spacecraft navigating the cold void of our solar system, routing algorithms helping us dodge rush hour traffic, or even automated machine control in massive factories, we are directly benefiting from his work. Every single time you open a map app to find the quickest way home, you are literally relying on math built entirely in the mind of a blind teenager, guided by his mom simply reading tails up and tails down. How wild is that?
So, the crucial takeaway for us today is the fundamental question Pontryagin dared to ask. What is the pattern hiding inside the chaos? How do we find the perfect, optimal path through all the crazy complexity of the real world? Lev Semenovich Pontryagin asked that question, and against literally all odds, he found the mathematical answer. Because he flat out refused to let his circumstances stop him, our modern world is forever changed. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, CBSE students. Keep asking those big questions, and remember, no obstacle is